This is the most acid I've ever seen anybody eat in my life. Wow, man!
Fireball, Paul!
Why don't you get a job, Spicoli?
What for?
You need money.
All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. And now it's time for that feral hippie herself, an infotartic, esoteric, eclectic mix of the adventures of that feral hippie, Miss Mona Radler.
What are you people? On dope?
That was my skull! I'm so wasted!
Make a move and the money gets it.
Dave's not here!
All right, Mona, it's all yours. Take it away.
I am muted. My computer is acting funny. Reboot. Okay. Welcome to Friday's edition of July 7th, 2017. Yes, indeedy, we are here. Woohoo! Here at freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio, and Hanky Shack. Alrighty then. You all know it, and I'll tell you again, just because it's part of the protocol, because we care about this station and we are listener supported. So get to the homepage right now. See who can get the clicker faster. Get to the clicker, like the easy button, right? Oh, yes, indeedy, shall we all? Yes. Donate all kinds of things. We volunteer our time here to get these listening airwaves out to y'all. So please help support the power bill, the cable bill, the other hundreds of different taxes and bills that we have to cover. But it's all a game. So know what you put out, you'll get back in return. Woohoo! One way or another. Hi, Andrew. We get what we give, don't we? Did you unmute? Uh-oh. I'm talking to myself. Andrew, are you here? Oh, that's funny. Okay. Are you talking? Can you hear me? Okay, ing. Can you hear me? Hear me. Oh, I can't hear you. Okay. We shall see what happens here. Oh, gosh. Okay, go ahead. I'll be here. You know where to come at. Aren't those so pretty? Yeah, Friday. Oh, FRI. What's that for? So religious incidences? I mean, FRI. I don't know. The world is living in those kinds of communications. BLB, BRR, FBF, whoever. I mean, too many things for me to try to keep up with, I'm telling you. Yeah, just it all goes by so fast, doesn't it? And then you wonder if you got anything done or if you did too much or what is next. We don't ever really know now, do we? Oh, all kinds of things. And we would like to have a little better freeness in our existence. And we do. It's all in choice. It just all is what we believe to have perspective of seeing what it is. It's all in our own minds. So we shall create whatever it is that's out there. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's kind of interesting that people have not been taught. Yeah. Yep. Because you just never know. So, Andrew, can you call me back? Okay, he's rebooting. He's in yellow. Should I try? See, we didn't pre-communicate. Normally, if we pre-communicate, things work out. But the little spiral is going so slow. I don't know why either. It's just, are we having some kind of solar conditions going on? I know we might have another hurricane coming up the way there, but I haven't seen new information yet on it. Okay, it's just, that's not cutting down. That is just so weird. It's just not going. Can you people hear me? I mean, it's just not working right. Let's see. Let me see. Woohoo! Well, we're trying. Yep. Yep, it's one of those Jan and Den days or something. Okay, it's just not going to happen. Oh, why is it showing that? Did he try to call back and couldn't get in? I don't get that. Because he just needs to add himself. I mean, or I can add him. So, all right, let's see. If I do this, let's see what happens. Okay. It's ringing, but that doesn't mean squat sometimes at all. Because I know how long it takes to reboot, but I'm being incy. Thank you, Zippy. Thank you, Karen. Yeah, what? Oh, hi, honey.
So this is on my phone. So my computer, my clock on my computer stopped working.
Whoa.
It kept blinking 12, and then something else on my computer went wrong. It was just very, very odd. Never seen that happen.
Oh. You don't remember the second number? I'd be playing the lottery.
It's stuck at 10:07.
Oh.
So like for an hour, my clock read 10:07.
Did you shut the computer completely off?
Yeah, I actually had to like hit the power button and hold it down to turn itself off because it was locked.
Right, mine does that too.
Yeah,
in fact, it gets this ugly sound to the point it sounds like somebody's trying torture on your hearing. And certain sounds make it.
That's the hard drive on that computer. This was a software failure. I think it's because Microsoft tried updating Skype again, and they tried to sneak everyone to get the Microsoft Skype app, phone app, which is screwing up everyone's computers. Horrible.
Well, I don't doubt it.
Yeah. If anyone's out there and don't use the Microsoft Skype app, use the actual desktop or PC version of it.
Because it just doesn't work on the phone.
No, it doesn't work on tablet or laptop. It takes up too much resources. It confuses with other programs. It doesn't put files into your download. It puts them into your Microsoft Edge that are on the cloud. Right.
So it takes it completely where you can't find it again. Is that it too?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, gosh. So did you have a great day of independence?
No.
Oh.
It was a day of work for me.
Well, that's independent. You're not working for somebody else, are you?
No, I work totally for myself, yeah. But it was a day of work. Yeah.
But that's independence. Most people cannot claim that.
That's correct. Let me switch. Now my computer's working. Let me call you from the computer instead of this phone, because this phone will die in a minute.
Well, you will do what you have to do, dear sir. I'm just here holding the call. Go ahead.
I'll be doing like 5 seconds. I'll be right back.
You can have 10. I'm only in half a big hurry. Okay, what else would we do on Fridays? Let's see. Usually, I guess a lot of the stories I've ever heard is the daddies would go get their checks cashed, and
here we are.
And oh, cool, that was quick, and end up in the bars losing all their Friday's work pay. Oh gosh.
So how are things going for you?
I'm always blessed, no matter what I say. I know the iconicness of the cosmic joke. And so I'm just trying to have to put on the better costume.
Well, there's the old saying, there's all these ascended masters around and they tell a joke. How many light workers does it take to change a light bulb? 0. They should be self-illuminated.
Yeah, I'm thinking, why would there need to be a light bulb,
Exactly. They're self-illuminated. They're supposed to create their own light.
Well, I've been accused of that.
Yeah,
and I love seeing other people's light, too. When I got to see the Dalai Lama's aura and all that, even though he's in that bright orange color, oh my gosh. Yep, I got to shake his hand, and I never said a word to him. I waited for everybody else to leave the church where he came to talk. And it was right at when one of the biggest Indian earthquakes ever happened. The moon was so huge. It was an orange moon, too, and I got to sit in a banyan tree waiting for the thing to start. So I got in, and I sat down, and everybody kept asking, what's he saying? Because they don't listen. They don't shut off their minds. They don't listen to what they're hearing. They hear all, and I'm like, oh, just shut up, just leave me alone, because I'm trying to concentrate on what he was trying to say. And then he would tell a joke, and his belly would giggle or jiggle. And the whole flippin' aura of him literally illuminated the room. But not too many other people got to see that. So as they were all piling out, I just let them pile out, and I was the last one out. And all I could do was smile at him, clasp both his hands and bow to him and walk away. But they sit down and pray to this picture of some guy that doesn't mean a hill of beans to me, and I ain't gonna sit and pray to some guy. They take the words and manipulate them into some falsehood that you got to look outside yourself for yours. What is it? Not sanity. What is it when you get saved?
Saved.
Oh, well.
I was just joking there.
You know what I mean.
Internal point of view. So to seek the external and not the internal.
But that was a beautiful day. It was very interesting. I had a lot of days like that in St. Pete, Florida, because a lot of things would come in and out and through there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Too many memories are flooding back. The day I got to shake Johnny Winter's hand and get his autograph. That was cool. And sneak in back doors, back ways to see and meet people without trying. Yeah, oh gosh. We should be playing as children, and I'm glad I never really got in trouble for it. Because I've crossed so many lines that, the sign says you can't do that. Oh, watch me.
Exactly, watch me. Whatever the sign says, I will not do.
Oh, I thought that was the permission. I can see respecting things. I can see being considerate. But why should somebody tell me if I really should be allowed or not? And then if the circumstances or occurrence come in that are really a little bit, okay, I might need help, well, then let's give thanks that I'm getting help. Right.
I mean, there are some scenarios where you may find yourself in a cultural oddity where that assistance or help will give you context of why they're acting or not acting in a certain way that is based off of your culture.
Yeah, like climbing over the bars at the zoo into the gorilla's tank, That's a little like, I don't think you should have gone over there, man.
Yeah, bad choice. Every year, 4 or 5 times a year, all throughout the world, somebody tries to climb over the zoo structure and get in and feed and play with the lions, and they end up getting killed.
Yeah, there's a lot of pent up aggression in those cages. I mean, would people even recognize what happens when a human is captized like that?
Still a sentient being.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And I mean, I did have finches. I had a cockatiel. and other birds of those natures. They had their cage, but they got their flight time. And I had one lovebird who used to travel around with me everywhere in my truck. He was my
little buddy. I had a blue and gold macaw, like a big parrot bird. Mm-hmm. And that bird would travel everywhere with me too. And it was so dominant of all the other pets in my house that if I didn't pay full 100% attention to it for a minimum of 10 minutes before I touched or looked at the dog or cat, it would get mad. Possessive mad. It'd come down out of its cage and chase the dog and the cat away.
Oh, yeah, but you don't want to get bit by one of them.
Oh, he nibbled on me every now and then, but
but I meant the cat or the dog. They probably
they ran. That bird ran them. It got to the point where my bird figured out dog cookie, cat cookie kind of thing, and it would mimic my voice, and it would in the middle of the night go, Ginger, Cookie, and she'd be in a full-on dead sleep and go, Cookie, and run and look around the house and then come wake me up. And then I caught the bird doing it, and I just came home, finished paying attention to the bird and playing with the dog and the cat, and they're coming out, because I had this thing where my dog and my cat were just having a blast. And then the bird would go, Cookie, and the dog would stop and go at attention and raise her paw to the bird. That's how much that bird trained that dog.
I had a roommate who used to use his blue and gold for the pawn. The pawn shop. The pawn shop knew the bird enough times that it was okay, but and the bird's name was Bird. Loved hot peppers. Oh my gosh. I wanted to get a little bicycle so I could ride it. But I lived by Busch Gardens, so I saw all those things that they trained the birds to do. And it's like, oh gosh, they're just big, beautiful babies. You just love them.
Yeah. They're annoying sometimes. They have their birdie point of view.
Oh. Yeah. I'm very bird-brained. They do. I love animals of all kinds, even down to the itty-bitty. I found something out really cool the other day by one of my beekeeper friends, that a certain layer, like an inch into the soil, has some kind of element to it, but it's like an amoeba or some kind of bug, but it's not like where we can always see it. But they kill the mites that are harming and killing the bee colonies.
Yep.
So I'm like, well, yeah, you want to make sure your soils or your hive is on that soil, but they're supposed to actually be walking through that level of earth, the bees. So that's rather interesting because that's the only way they can collect the mite or the other things that hurt the bees. So that was interesting. I'm like,
where I live here, right behind my house, the person that I'm renting from has about 90 beehives. Nice. And I get honey from him regularly. And whenever he goes out and checks the nests and stuff, I'll go out there every now and then, put on the bee suit with him, and just be surrounded by the bees. And it's an amazing energy, absolutely amazing energy.
Well, have you brought up the shungite with it?
Yes, he has shungite in each and every one of the hives.
Nice. Well, cool. Because it has helped. And I've also heard that anybody who goes near the hives with a cell phone or that, the bees will attack you. So if you're out there...
No, it's all about if they've been trained for the cell phone or not.
No, not by my beekeepers.
I haven't had a problem with it, and neither is the guy. He has a cell phone on him all the time, even in the bee suit.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, I wonder. I really wonder.
They become an extension of you after a while.
What, the cell phone?
The bees.
Okay.
And you become an extension of them after a while because he's very, very in tune with them. He'll come over and talk to each different hive and so on and so forth, and hasn't been stung in 20 years.
Oh, so he doesn't wear a suit?
No, he wears a suit, but he hasn't been, you can still get stung through the suit if you don't do it right.
Oh, true, but you'd have to really, like you said, not have some kind of communications with them.
Right, and he's got, really good repertoire with his bees. He's been doing it for 20 plus years now. So
does he let? I just have a question. Well, because I've always wanted to have bees. Like he doesn't mow right around the beehives. It's just all where it's growing wild.
no,
Oh,
no. So he mows regularly around that area. And as soon as he mows, new flower tops come up right away.
oh, interesting. Cool.
So
What a thought.
The area we're in, it's like some of the grass has been taken over by moss, and then other areas it's a variety of blue wildflowers, yellow wildflowers, and then this plant called I forgot what it was called. Anyways, it's a nitrogen fixer that came from England and is taking this area over wild. Scotch broom, that's what it's called.
Oh,
The bees act really funny when that starts to flower because it has a unique pollen to it, and then the honey tastes very different if they feed on Scotch broom versus the wildflowers.
well, right.
Yeah.
STOCH.
Yeah. And then the wildflowers here, you get three different growings of them. So it'll grow. Some of them will grow through the moss, and then we have these little yellow buttercup flowers. I don't know exactly what they're called here, but they grow. If you cut the grass, they'll all be back. A new top will be back in 48 hours.
Yeah, depending on the height.
Yeah, depending on the height. Yeah.
Right.
So his cutting stimulates more flower growth.
Well, no, I thought about the engine on the machine aggravating the bees. But yeah, I did mean the environmental part too. Yeah.
So his wife is out there cutting the grass, every week, and she's out there cutting the grass without a bee suit and never had a problem.
Aw, how sweet is that? Well, I didn't have a no shungite Band-Aids for all the electric that came over to do our yard the other day. So I have to get more shungite Band-Aids. But the goose usually, when the guy next door who would mow the lawn, she hated him. Oh, she'd freak the whole time he even got close to us and the back porch with the mower.
Uh-huh.
The kid was out there. She didn't say one single word with this kid doing the mowing. I was just like, oh, gosh, that's so cool. Because she would lose it. I was thinking, she'd hurt herself because she was just so angry.
Uh-huh.
But I only got to put one shungite Band-Aid on the mower, and I don't know if that was the mower or not.
Okay. There are so many interesting devices out there. Those little hologram things you put on your cable box or your router. All of those have a frequency behind them. But do they truly work? It's all about what you
I have to say, yeah.
Yeah,
I really do.
They provide some form of relief.
Vibrational differences. It's like a UPC code.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I call it relief to the environment that's ever in flux. It's like it kind of balances the flux of the environment.
Like a transmitter, or not transmitter. Oh, gosh. The thing that directs the energy. I always see things like the Matrix, like Tron. Remember the movie Tron?
Yep, I remember that movie.
Okay, so that's how I've always seen how the universe probably works. But we can also implant ours. That's like the iRobot thing. That was one of the best movies I ever saw with the idiocy of human beings.
That's right. So you're talking the one with Will Smith?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What was cool about that movie was when it came to the end and the robot didn't want to hurt anyone, and it went all the way to the end without doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even though he was told to kill his father.
Yep.
But, sometimes things got to happen. I try not to question things, but it was interesting because that's part of the curiosity of investigating. But when you're doing something past the point, because you got such a hard-on to always constantly achieve more, there's going to be a breaking point. And they don't recognize that the repercussions are not just going to affect that problem that they just created. It will multiply into many other problems.
And then there'll be little baby problems everywhere. that grow up to adult problems very fast.
Sounds like a cartoon book, comic book, right?
Exactly.
Oh, did you see the satanic one? It's really sad.
Which one?
They have a satanic comic book or coloring book for children.
I've never looked, and I won't go look at it.
Oh, I did it over the air. I critiqued it over the air. Yeah. Like, whoa, look at that!
You know, there's so much shocking stuff out there. I don't want to go looking for it.
Well, but it wasn't anything that you wouldn't have seen in a certain movie or two. Just the flipping games they play with their Game Boy crap stuff, you're going to see that kind of imagery. I
get that. See, there are things on the internet. One of them on YouTube is the Fail Army, where there's people that have video of people, doing stupid stunts that go horribly wrong. And there are so many people that are laughing and liking that and not realizing the true human pain that's going on in that. And there's one particular one where it shows this little 16-year-old kid in the middle of winter who's going to dive onto a swimming pool that's solid ice. And he runs and jumps very high into a cannonball and hits butt first onto the ice, and the ice doesn't give away, and he shatters his hip. And you can physically
it wasn't his whole spine. Oh my gosh.
You could tell that his hip was broken in at least 2 places, and everyone's just laughing, and that's got like 11 million views.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's utterly stupidity. Where are the adults?
Right. Where are the adults?
Oh gosh.
Well, and then
I'm not saying my sons didn't do stupid but the whole thing is on ice. From
his swimming pool. Yeah, into his backyard swimming pool.
That's like hitting 10 brick walls at one time.
Right. Imagine if he did break through the ice.
Oh gosh.
Right. He'd have gone under the ice, drowned. Right. So there are thousands of videos like that have millions upon millions of hits.
I couldn't watch those TV shows.
Right.
Where people are hurting themselves.
Right. America's Funniest Home Videos.
Oh, gross. Oh, I'm cringing at this time.
Right. Every video, every series, every episode had 5 or 6, men getting hit in the nuts with a baseball from their kid.
I just didn't even want to watch the Three Stooges.
Yeah, that was different though. That was a little different. The same thing with America's Funniest Videos. They had this one video that won great amounts of awards and stuff, but it's about a woman that was trying to step onto a horse, and the horse didn't buck but moved around a little bit, and she put herself back down and fell off of a wooden embankment and broke her spine.
Well, she needed some extra support, but oh my gosh, we shall return. Mm-hmm. These things are magic, magic, magic. Welcome back. Okay, here we are. What's going on?
Not much. What notes were those?
The first one is an A475 hertz, and the second one is a F175 hertz.
Nice.
I know. I got 5 more to go.
This is an A.
Is it?
Yeah.
So that's the same as mine.
Yeah, it's a very thin bowl. Very, very thin, but it holds an incredibly powerful note.
Thin like how?
Like normally you would have them, they're much heavier in your hands. The actual metal for the bowl is pounded very thin.
Huh.
Very thin. Like, I don't want to say paper thin. It's obviously not paper thin, but it's
right.
Like half the thickness of many of the other bowls.
Well, it doesn't have a seam. Interesting, because these are straight from a Tibetan bowl making place that actually.
This is two. This one is a second, meaning it's an A note, but it's not a perfect A note when you go to play it because it's all hand hammered.
Yeah, so is this one.
Yeah, this is hand hammered. You could tell that it probably took whoever it was, and it's not old. I mean, that's probably only 10 years old, but whoever hand hammered that, was either learning or was capable of doing it and just ran into the point that it's certain batches of metals are more pure than others, and it's easy to work with.
Oh, it's amazing art. I mean, I've seen the crystal ones all out in California, the most neatest rock shop out there. It's, what do you call it? Shasta.
Yep.
So I've seen all those, and I have certain brass balls, but these are 7 different metals.
Just north of Shasta, I think it's Ashland, there is a Tibetan bowl shop there that has, I believe it's the biggest bowl in the world, and it's like 7.5 feet round, and you use like this broom to activate it. And once it gets going, it just reverberates through the entire building and everything that's in there. You could just totally feel it. And then they'll fill it up with a very little amount of water, and then the water will start jumping and turning into a mist.
Aww. Yeah, I haven't tried that yet. I was thinking about it, but not yet. Because to me, it's important that we do these things. It's like wind chimes. I have fetishes with wind chimes.
Yeah.
And they got to sound perfectly right. Otherwise, I don't want them around. And people don't recognize the sounds influence us, just like smells and other things like that.
That's right. There are certain sounds that put, instant relaxation to you. Just by minor focus on the song. Like the birds in the morning. Mm-hmm. How can bring great relaxation to slip out of your human mind and just hear what the birds are doing, and then contemplating their form of communication.
Right. Yep, and we've got the birds around here. Oh my gosh, that's one thing I'm very thankful for, because geez. It's a whole lot different than Florida birds, though. That's the funny part, too.
Oh, yeah, very, very different. And then where I'm at in the Pacific Northwest, the birds are very different than what I'm used to, being in the North Coast, Cleveland, Ohio area. The variety of birds and ducks there is massively different, because we'll get some birds that are just ocean-going birds, and every now and then they'll come inland when I'm only about 40 miles out. And there's lakes everywhere here. So you get this huge intermix of different bird species here.
That's cool.
There's these little birds, they look like finches, but they have a black top and a gold bottom and a green feathers. Mm-hmm. So obviously not finches.
Well, but woodpeckers are in the finch family, so.
And we have woodpeckers here, but they're not very many. More owls everywhere here.
Yeah, I'd like to have more owls here. Yeah, I definitely would like to have more owls here. But I think I've been hearing a bat or two at night, which makes me happy.
Yeah, bats are very important to tell you if your environment's healthy or not.
Well, I know it's not. I've had so many setbacks that I try not to take personal with what's happening through the environment. And I do what I can to make it happy and to try to sustain itself. In fact, I had a dead piece of soil come back. It's growing morning glories now on it.
Oh.
And they planted themselves, which was neat.
That's awesome when they self-plant and you look back and go, hey, nature's taking back over.
But it was a dead spot I brought back to life through the whole winter. You know what I mean? That's what made me happy.
Mm-hmm. What caused the die-off?
So they were selling, or not selling, they were giving away a certain compost, but what they put in that compost, they didn't tell you. And it wasn't a natural breakdown, etc. In fact, stuff couldn't grow in it where the pile was, which you would think would be covered with creeping Charlie and the rest of it. Would grow nothing.
It's highly acidic.
I'm like, do not. Yeah, well, I'm finding burnt pieces of wood, which is almost nice if I wanted potash in it, or plastic and trash. No, it just means that they don't care.
I don't care. So when I used to do fires all the time, we would, burn 2 cords of wood in a season easily. Sometimes 4 cords of wood when we were doing heavy duty ceremony, and we would get potash at the bottom that had been burnt and reburnt so many times, it was down to this very fine silt. And once you pulled off the surface ash and all the excess stuff, you could have 30 to 40 pounds of this really refined potash. And then we'd mix it with the cow manure or whatever else we were doing, and we'd make what's called a barn tea. Have you ever heard of that? I learned this from the Amish.
Neat. No, go ahead.
So you get like 40 pounds of this potash, whatever manure you're going to use and whatever dirt you're going to use, and you put it on a big tarp, and you're basically making a giant tea bag.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to run warm water through it, and then that warm water is you're going to collect it into like a barrel or something, and you're going to make a highly refined
concentrated
nutrient. That's they call it barn tea, because they fix it into the barn, and they hang the big bag, and they literally drain it into big containers.
That is so cool.
Spray it, and then they go spray it everywhere, or they go dump it everywhere. Every big plant gets a gallon of this, a gallon of that, and they'll do it 4 or 5 times a year.
Right. That is really neat, because you let it maturate, and then it'll mellow, and then
Yep. Mm-hmm. And
interesting.
Done this many times, and I had tomato plants that were size of trees.
Yeah, I got to grow hydroponically over 18-footed tomato plants. I know what you're talking about.
I did hydroponic growing for quite some time too. I started on an old Aero Grow, a 3-pot Aero Grow.
Okay.
My first one of those, and I had stuff growing faster than I can do, and then I'd pull up the bottom, because it was all bubbler from the bottom, and then a sprayer. So, and the root thing would be this massive tangled ball of roots in the suspended nutrient.
We use perlite.
Perlite, yeah. So as I advanced,
and then some vermiculite, because it held the water. You didn't have to water as often.
Yeah, well, this was a hydro grow, so all the roots were suspended into water.
I get it.
Yeah. So that was my first experience with that, and then I went and built my own little ebb and flow table, and I grew as much herbs as I could grow, and it was really, really fun. It was an outdoor ebb and flow table.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's where the cauliflower and all that was.
I think I did cauliflower, celery, and...
Well, in Florida, it's hard to grow celery, but I was the celery queen in Florida. I grow things other people couldn't grow.
Yeah. I did that every now and then, too. I could grow stuff. I had really good dirt. Really, really good dirt, where I was at.
Well, we made it. We had to. Because I had a big commercial 3 greenhouse business going. It started with...
Yeah, I was just doing mine for fun. I wasn't selling anything. I was just doing it for fun.
No, it was a livelihood for me, because I couldn't work in society because I didn't like their rules.
Mm-hmm.
So I did, my own. But it started off with cactus and succulents, and I made my own pottery and the whole 9 yards, and had floral shops and basically wholesale manufacture and garden shops. I mean, it was when money was fun to make, I'm telling you, okay? We used to make this thing. He was so cute. He was a piggy bank, but I can't leave things the way that they supposedly intended. And he looked like a little biker pig. He was cute with the hat. He was laying on his side. So he had this big old belly, and I cut his belly back and stuck a cactus, like a penis coming out of it. Anytime I had any of those, they'd sell like hotcakes. I couldn't keep up with them. Well, because everybody feels like that. You know, you're just getting poked and prodded. Oh.
So have you ever gone to like county fairs and seen these people that grow giant vegetables? Like 90-pound carrots, 2,000-pound pumpkins.
Jeez. Okay.
So fairs, state fairs all throughout the United States, they have these contests that have been going on for hundreds of years in some places.
Yeah, 4-H clubs too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'd gone to this one fair, and it was the world's largest pumpkin, 2,941 pounds, grown by an 11-year-old kid.
Oh, what do you think he fed it?
He talked about it. It was on a drip feed 24 hours a day with lights that would turn on and off every 12 hours, just like a pot grower.
Oh, but just imagine the size, just the pictures of the beginning to the end. But you couldn't not have the green to go with it. I mean, I like nature to take its course, you know, and to have something so confined like that kind of, it takes a special magic to do the indoor growing like that.
He did that outdoors. He did that outdoors. Right. So as the light was going on, the normal light was going down, he would he'd have lights that would go on to give it extra light, and timed, and the time would change, you know, because you have a minute's difference every morning. The sunrise is different.
Oh, how calculated.
Was adjusted.
That's cool.
Yeah, all that. And then when the nutrient would come in, the type of nutrient it was, and it was and it wasn't his first prize that he had won. So and then
I think he should try a different vegetable.
He did a 90-pound beet and a 90-pound carrot too.
How do you do that? And
beet.
Yeah, but what? That'd be a big vat to hold that thing in.
Yeah. And the little inscription on what was he had made like this bowl out of that rubber they use for ponds. So he had dug out a big, like 8-foot round bowl that had a very deep hole in the bottom, and then he had a pipe running to the very bottom so it could be fully watered on the outside, and then excess water he could pull out so it would grow. He could guide the beetroot's growing style.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, he's got to start growing ginseng, man.
Yeah, he's got to do something. That's a big fortune out of that.
Well, even the greens are good. The American ginseng is so much more better than the Eurythio, the Siberian ginseng. Yeah. And people just weren't sold it. But, of course, there's people who steal it like the golden seal completely out of nature. They don't leave a they just rape the whole area and then wonder why it doesn't grow back. Well, because you're supposed to, like, take 2, leave 3 kind of thing, you know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what does ginseng do in the ground? What does it fix in the ground, or what does it add?
You know, that's a good question. I really don't know.
You know, because every plant in the environment adds or takes something out of the environment to bring balance to it. It's kind of the way all plants work.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, like saltbush in Florida. Help take the extra salt out. That's a great question. I really don't know. I never got into that part. I got into the part that helped with us, but not with the earth. But what a great idea.
So here in the Pacific Northwest, mushroom hunters are gigantic business here. So you have 3 times a year, they have the shaggy mane muffins, or 2 times a year, the shaggy mane mushrooms come up. And it's like there's a fervor in all these little local towns because people can make $2,000-$3,000 in like 4 days out gathering mushrooms. Right. I mean, they're also bringing back bushels of them, but, you know, they're highly prized.
I forget the ones that
too. Yeah, the morel mushrooms, and then truffles.
Yeah, but don't you have to have a pig for that?
No, there is a way to tell truffles. There's a little green piece that pops up, or a little head piece that pops up that's identifiable. Here, at least here in the Pacific Northwest.
Right. So they'd be looking at the nodes.
Yeah, they'd be looking at the nodes.
Uh-huh.
And then where it would grow, like by certain tree roots, certain tree types. You're going to be looking to see if there's heavy water drainage. Is that going to wash the out and make it too wet or too dry? And then you just kind of figure it out after a while. Yes, it'll probably grow there. That's a good place to look.
Yeah, like when you're hunting for peyote.
Yeah, when you're hunting for peyote, exactly. Hey, let me go look over there. Looks like a good place.
Well, but all plants will talk to us too, so we have to be a little more aware of that.
And mushrooms, they all talk. So when the mushroom season comes, as I said, this place gets very fervent. People out doing things, and then ginseng. I think it's generally in the early August that they go. And it's almost like this little mafia war where people are. Yeah. So up here, we have huge stretches of land that are owned by a paper company called Weyerhaeuser, 20, 50,000 acres at a time. And these ginseng hunters will go on there, and the people that are defending Weyerhaeuser properties let dogs loose on them and all this other crazy stuff. Yeah.
Well, if they're trying to control it to the point where it's not getting robbed, I can see that. But, hey.
Well, it's getting robbed. It is getting robbed. And these people are not good to the land because here the methamphetamine problem in the city got so bad that the homeless camps were kicked out of the city. And then they began to realize, the homeless camps realized that they can live in the deep forests during the summer, and they just have to find somewhere else to live in the winter. And so they've been going into these Weyerhaeuser territories and making these squat camps, and then they do outdoor meth cooking, and they'll go hunt ginseng and mushrooms and stuff to make money during the seasons.
Isn't that just downright just pathetic?
Yeah, it's pathetic. Yeah.
Well, I remember back in the day supporting like 4 families with dumpster diving, and then it got illegal just because they were tossing stuff out that really wasn't going bad. But why should you let it go to waste and just fill landfills?
That's right.
And by all laws, you can't donate it to a group or a cause because of liabilities.
Mm-hmm. But every day, the amount of food that goes thrown away here in the United States can feed 1/3 of the starving people in the world.
Well, probably more if you thought like Christ and just took what you needed and passed it on.
Heck, if they just converted everyone's leftovers into a giant, combination soup, you could feed the whole world.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
But what are those ingredients? Wait a minute, I choose living food, not all this byproduct, processed, chemicalized, and annihilated nutrition food. They talk.
Mm-hmm.
And they taught it. My mother sent me to a Southern Living cooking school. And I thought it was interesting and fun. And, it might have sparked my interest when I was a teenager to want to get into the condiments kind of thing. But their cheese was Velveeta, the plastic stuff. And you just get sold these things that this is supposed to be nutritious and it's all in the taste. So they put the MSG and the other stuff in it. Yeah. It's like, wait a minute here. No wonder I had migraines.
Yes, migraines from the MSG. I remember that. So it was really, I had a little MSG story. I worked, when I was 17, I worked at a mall coffee shop. And we had a Chinese place come next to us. And it was Mr. Wang's Chinese. Just like a straight up almost racist name. And they had a giant sign that says this, this, and this, and no MSG. And we would make fun. MSG was no mall security guards. Wah, wah, wah. I know you can't laugh at that one, but that's one of those young moments because you'd see all these mall security guards eating the Chinese every day.
Well, it's so interesting that every country still uses the same herbs, but the idea is it comes out a different flavor.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. You know, every flavor comes down to that individual zeal of the cook.
Oh, that too. Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
And then everyone's style is their style. We have this thing. Everything that tastes like chicken for when you can't describe it.
Alligator tail was the worst thing I ever tried that I won't do again.
I did not like any part of the alligator. I did not.
Oh, so it was greener than frog legs.
Yeah.
I mean, as a kid, I used to love going to the seafood place and eating frog legs, but I sure wouldn't do that now because I miss all those froggers. We'll be right back. Ribbit. Gosh, I better smoke faster because I'm always late at this break. Gosh, bless it. Are you still?
I was like, well, she's either coughing or trying to find the mute button.
That was after.
That was after.
I mean, I go outside and I'm listening to the birds. I almost get taken away. And then it's like, okay, that's your third hit. Oh, you better go in. And then it's like, oh, shoot, this is the short promo. Oh, welcome back to freedomslips.com. Revolution Radio and Heggy Shack. Don't forget, we're listener supported, so everybody needs to go to the homepage and see what you can do to help us keep on air. These adventures are for some kind of reason and thinking. So let us stay on air so we can keep on going. Yeah, on the giggle part, I haven't had that yet. I will in a minute, though.
How did you come up with that name, Adventures of a Feral Hippie?
Well, Mike, the illustrious who holds the helm, gave me the name Feral Hippie because I was going to call into his show, and the producer asked, is she okay to let on? And he said, yeah, she's just a feral hippie. So... And so the Adventures of a Feral Hippie. And my promo is the best promo ever.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I mean, and just even the other one that Karen wrote for me that is played in between my promo, played in between other shows. Mm-hmm. I love it. It's just, it's so true. It all set me free. So every time now I think... when I type IMHO, it's usually in my humble opinion. No, it's in my hippie opinion.
So it's really interesting how the word hippie has evolved.
Okay.
Now you go back into the era that it was originally created, it had an extremely negative terminology behind it.
Oh, I know, like the 60s.
Negative. Right. And then it evolved to being a positive terminology, as well as just an archetypical personality type that is out there now. Oh, he's just a hippie, and that is a patchouli wearing, pot smoking, weird clothes wearing.
Oh, that's me. I think I lost you.
Yeah, I'm still here. And then you have the word hipsters. Hipsters was a whole different expression. Those were upwardly mobile hippies that were, about to have children and good jobs.
Yeah, but they didn't keep with the true walk of their path. I at least have.
Well, each person's is their own path. One cannot judge how far or how short they go.
Yeah, well, I didn't turn my back on nature for corporate funding and profit. I was trained to, though.
Yeah.
I have 3 degrees I couldn't even get a job with because there was just too much lying, too much power play and control that I wasn't going to involve myself in.
Mm-hmm. But that's the nature of business right now. They teach, go for the throat at business school. Why should we be going through the road at business school? Why shouldn't we make everyone's business better and stronger?
I don't know, man, because I was right there trying to help.
It comes down to the forms of education we have. We all talk about the dumbed down education that we have, and then there are certain forms of education that are carnivorous to the whole system.
Yeah, science.
Pray and consume, pray and consume. You have all this food that's being produced in big batches of areas that could feed the whole world, but the whole infrastructure of doesn't exist. There was a study, I believe it was done in the late 2000s, I think 2006, that was about world hunger, and that it would only cost $180 billion to feed everyone in the world for 5 years.
Only?
Only.
When they make that for how many bombs? How much do they spend per bomb?
Well, it's not about the bombs. They have, each airplane's $1 billion an airplane.
Well, but still, the cost. See, that's their biggest bitch, is they can't afford it.
But that's $180 billion over 5 years, and that's with the infrastructure to transport.
Which would put other people into employment, which would make all the economies get a little stronger.
Right.
Oh, how dare they?
And then you'd stop the process of having the food grown in one place and shipped to another place and sold at 10 times the price, instead of having the locals buy it at local farm-raised price.
Right. And then
more fresher and longer lasting, not treated with, gaseous chemicals to make it look green.
Right. Did you hear about the banana blight?
No, that's been going on for a while.
Right.
Yeah, that's been going on for quite a while.
People don't even recognize how simple that staple is that could be gone, because we have thought we should be able to get rid of nature's way of taking care of things. The bugs are important, man.
Very important. And then the other bugs that control those bugs, they're very important too.
Yeah, the first time I saw a dragonfly eat a butterfly, I was in shock. I even got pictures because it was like, whoa. And a black snake eating a frog. That was like, whoa.
Yeah, or the spiders that, are able to control the bugs that, peel back bark.
Oh, really? Huh?
Yeah, there's all different forms of small spiders that defend trees from bark-eating bugs, bark-boring bugs.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh. But then, shoes. Because everything now that's happening with the trees, and I'm sure you're seeing more of it than we are, but certain kinds of trees are just completely disappearing. They're dying, and they want to claim it's a beetle, but what you just said, it sounds like more it has something to do with the smaller chain of events.
So here they have the emerald ash borer beetle that is selectively taking out trees as part of an infestation. And then there's some other local beetles that are whatever was predating on them is gone. It's some kind of spider or whatever it was that would feed on them doesn't feed on them anymore. So they've just grown out of control. And you have whole batches of trees that will get infested extremely fast, and they'll build all these white webbings in them, and then the tree will die and become this massive producer of more bugs.
Yeah, viruses, and that there's no probably bird or predator that would eat the beetle either.
Right. And then they try to spray a pyrethrin in this area that makes people sick. They actually put signs up on the freeways and everywhere. We are going to be spraying blah, blah, blah. If you have any symptoms, report this here, and here. And I mean, so many people were just awful.
Well, then they had to put something else in it, because pure pyrethrum is safe enough to drink. So it's the inert and carrier products that are with the pyrethrum.
Whatever made it aerosol and could reach the trees. Whatever that was making people sick. Correct. The binder.
Yeah, because,
because they were worried about, entire 20 and 30 mile sections of losing forest. That's the corporations doing that. That's Weyerhaeuser, who owns all the wood here.
Well, it's really funny because I bet it was their cousin who sprayed the things to get rid of the spiders.
Probably.
Or it could be Fukushima.
I've done my own radiological metering here, and it is no different than anywhere else in the world.
Nice. Well, what do you think about the chemtrails, though? Do you think the elements in the clouds raining down is going to do that? Because when I saw the fires out west, it was a lot hotter and more igniting than a normal fire.
Only because the 5 previous years, they didn't allow any form of firewood cleanup, or did they allow anyone into those areas to do, the basic stuff. Now, the Native Americans used to burn the forests all the time on purpose, because what would come back was stronger and greater, and they would also know when to do it and when not to do it.
Right.
Okay, so you have, improper forest management. Improper forest management is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I don't doubt it in the least.
It's only a matter of time before lightning hits a particular area and starts its own fire. Naturally occurs. So those fires, were they hotter? Absolutely they were. But it was really about poor management. They could have created proper fire trails that stopped it and the thing, determining the high-risk areas like they do every other year. Just they cut all the fire support and the forest support people. Okay. Well, what happens when in a huge giant land, once you cut all the forest support people go and do whatever the hell they want there and end up starting fires.
There's no respect to it, though. And I really see that the environment has been having such a negative impact with itself that things are okay. Had this call from this fireman he said he was a fireman, but he's calling for the Fireman League to get $30 to go to or help the children learn about fires. And I'm like going, well, I would probably rather give my money to help stop the corporations that are putting the chemicals to making the retardants more flammable and those kinds of conditions out of society's reach.
But that's logic. You can't reach into other people's dislogic there. So
I did too. If he got it or not.
Your hand's gonna get bit because they don't want to hear it. The same thing with the coal burning plants. We could have been switched over to worldwide hydroelectric. Forget the Tesla and the free energy. We could have been worldwide ocean hydroelectric in the 1910s. Okay, they all knew that. Okay, that's called ocean tethering. When tide goes up, tide goes down. The ocean tethering's under tension, creates power. They could have had entire underwater farms of these ocean tension process that would have sent more than enough AC power or DC power back to the cities.
Well, they did try the desalinization in Florida, but the mollusks got in the way. But why didn't they do other filters so the mollusks couldn't get down there? And then were the mollusks edible?
Why didn't they use the mollusks as the filter?
Oh, well, you know how factual that is? Thank you. That was cool.
Right.
I mean,
I've seen other places. It was where was I think it was in Cambodia, where they had a massive mollusk area too. So they had figured out how fast the mollusks will grow, and that if they break ones off and then they embed them into a land, they could make this big giant bowl, like 30-yard by 30-yard bowl, totally encrusted in mollusks, and have fresh salt water go through that. And these mollusks would desalinate it, clean it, or if it was ocean, or it was regular ocean rainwater, they could clean that stuff fast, pure.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Right. So, again, you could make an entire water cleanliness plan just out of a big giant ball of mollusks. Zebra mussels, whatever it is. I mean, some of these mussels live 90 years. Clams can live 120 years.
Okay, so are you going to tell me that now everything that they said that was wrong, right, is really what's been right?
Pretty much.
Did that make sense?
Yep.
So they say, the mollusks are damaging, but they're not. They were actually benefiting. So it's part of the Orwellian plan or somebody's plan of process, monopoly kind of thing.
There you go. Geez. So when the settlers came into America and past the Appalachian Mountains, they began discovering rivers and valleys that had these rivers in them that had mussels and freshwater clams. The whole bank could be 20 yards thick of them. So whenever there would be heavy floods, this 20-yard bank of mollusks would act as its own natural barrier, and that many of the beavers learned how to incorporate mollusks to create walls to hold areas in, as well as the native populations. So they started mining on the Ohio River this section of embankment for the shells, as well as the mussels that they would pull out and can and sell. And it took them 103 years to go through a 7-mile section. Now, the entire river is lined like that in a massive wall and filter system.
And I bet the weeds on the side are immaculate looking.
Yep.
I mean, that's part of the habitat too.
Yeah. And it's, getting and seeding that habitat, making sure that habitats grow naturally. Again, water purifying, all of that stuff could have been solved in the 1900s when they started doing the work projects.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't allow, the rest of the, process through.
Nope. And if anybody would have said something different, I know what it feels like to get poo-pooed on this stuff.
Right. Hydroelectric alone could have solved everything. Okay? From the ocean. But too many companies wanted to put their own product out because they knew they could sell certain areas instead of there being a single plan. One guy does it one way, another guy does it another way, another guy does it another way. That's what the 1900s were about. It was an open invention process.
Oh, I just want it all better. I've seen some really neat things where a dirty lake had like a floating island of different, of course, it had medium in it, soil, dirt, whatever else they did, but they kind of tied it together and weaved it all out and let the weeds get on it, and it actually cleaned the lake. There was no other extra thing that you'd have to go to. Now, I would also think okay, you can't use those plants, like I wouldn't want to grind them up and put them somewhere else, but how does the chemical breakdown actually, and what does it take and how long? Of course, I wouldn't know that answer. But that's probably what water hyacinths do too. But some of those you can eat the actual root bulb if you're like in dire straits of needing something to eat. Same with cattails.
Yeah. So water, once they started putting gasoline inside tanks in the early 1900s, selling it everywhere, gasoline, kerosene, and you began to have regular benzene poisoning, there was a massive die-off of the mollusks or the way for freshwater mollusks or clams to grow in inland lakes and stuff like that.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah. And that's, caused a total, food chain breakdown. And that's ultimately, you were asking how fast does it take to get something out? It's like, if the mollusk is absorbing and filtering it, yes, that may shorten or lengthen the mollusk's lifetime because its whole purpose is a water filter. What's it pulling out of it? Microorganisms. What's it putting back into it? Nutrients from microorganisms. Bringing balance to its environment around it.
Well, do you think it could take the toxic stuff and recycle it? I mean,
I do. I believe it would trap it in its own system. Yes, it may end its life force early, but it would also procreate at the same time, 10 times its versions of itself.
Hopefully with an inoculation to be able to handle so much more of that toxin.
Well, it'll trap it in the shell that it's growing. That's the scenario.
Interesting.
So, because it's constantly growing a bigger and bigger and bigger shell. Because what is a mollusk? It's just, when you look inside, that's all that it is. It's just a filter,
It's
literally,
really cool.
It's a biological organism. Does it sentient? Yes, it is. Is it any more sentient than a fish? I think the fish probably has more awareness. But then again, when you have a colony that's 20 yards thick, on the water, maybe that 20 yards is a sentient being, because the land is communicating, the water is communicating, those fish are there communicating. It is sharing energy in the interconnected system. Heck,
yeah, I remember.
Entire 20-mile section of the river could be one giant collective mollusk consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Just like the clams we had in Florida. They made beds of clams. They grew on top of each other. Oh, I had some sharp experiences with those clam beds at one time, but I wonder how much is there still.
Well, the thing is, clams, if they're reseeded, can grow, but it takes 5 to 10 years for them to really take hold and grow super fast. Now, if there were, more people in groove with animal sciences and animal reproduction and animal husbandry at the mollusk level, I'm sure you could reseed entire areas. But ultimately, what's the environmental impact going to be? And there is where science deniers will stop reseeding. Like, we could have reseeded the entire oceans 25 to 30 years ago with the technology there of just getting the tuna to breed, or getting the microorganisms to breed, or putting shrimp back into the water, having giant, things that look like oil tankers, but their whole thing is just to breed and add new shrimp to the water.
Oh.
Okay? You could have fleets of these all over the water, constantly reseeding new microorganisms into the areas.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
That's like the shrooms, man. Leave some to spore. Leave some to spore.
That's right. So all that's been known about. Okay. But it's a choice. It's a choice in the governmental structure to not allow, hey, we, our resources are dying. Why can't we work together and reseed it?
Well, because a lot of people wouldn't have known to think like that. I didn't think like that. I only think in my own area, but just to the idea of that is amazing ideas.
Mm-hmm. They know.
And what harm would it do? Okay, see, that's the whole thing. We are here trying to do it in peace and love and joy and creativity, and they want none of that. That's why they're up against or outlawing your free will privileges, like gaining rainwater, putting a garden in your front yard, to all kinds of atrocities that you're not allowed to do.
Right. They figured out just by opening up certain rivers that the salmon would triple in that area or quadruple in that area. Now, salmon, trout, and what is the other one? Catfish are quite easy to breed if you are able to do colder, fast-moving water. And they have these fish farms now that are these like finger lines that are 4 or 5 feet deep, 6 feet wide, 300-400 feet long, and it's like a giant radiator, so the fish can go up and down this giant radiator. And they can breed tons of fish at a time and then seed them back into the water. But the states and the local governments won't allow these fish farms to be directly connected to rivers. So when you go to capture the fish and put them in tanks, you can have a certain amount of die-off instead of direct release. So direct release of entire farms of fish twice, 3, 4 times per year into the proper rivers. Bait fish at the same time. How easy it is to rebreed minnows.
Right.
Okay.
I think it's a novel idea, and I am a little now more pissed off that we haven't been working in that structure.
Well, the technology is bait shop. I remember, I grew up on Lake Erie, so, you had bait shops everywhere, and we went to this place called Master Bait and Tackle. And I know we just as kids, you would joke about the name all the time, but they in the back would have these giant vats of minnows. Like I'd probably say they were 300-gallon tanks, and they could have 20,000, 30,000 minnows in it.
Right.
and you get in there and get, one bucket of minnows or however many it was. And then every now and then they would do freshwater smelt. I don't know if you've ever had a fish called a smelt.
It sounds like I've heard it before, but I don't know.
So take a minnow and make it like 6 inches long, but like thin like a pencil.
Right.
Okay. And that's its maximum thing. And they would grow tens of thousands of these. And then you essentially batter them real quick and deep fry them, everything, head and tail and everything. And they're amazing food, or you can pan fry them in oil, whatever. And they're amazing to have that. And they're highly nutritious, full in omega-3s, totally, you get the whole fish, everything that's in it. And you'll have, you could easily have, 20 to 30 that would make up a meal.
Like sardines.
Yeah, but thin like pencils.
Mm-hmm.
And when they would sell those, and that was an industry to sell freshwater smelt, until there was a big die-off of the freshwater smelt in, I think, in 1996 or 1997, and then that whole industry crashed, and they can't do it anymore.
Oh, how sad is that?
Yeah. But if they would have let the bait and tackle companies seed the lakes again, and they would have been fine. But there was an environmental order to stop the seeding of the smelt.
That's right, because this planet is trying, or they're trying to kill the planet.
Right, and these are all bait and tackle shops that are right on the lake, getting the minnows or the smelt from the lake and using lake water. All right.
Well, that even takes the bait away.
Yeah, but you can propagate the bait. That's what they were doing.
Right.
So they would gather the bait fish at their breeding times, and then they would breed in their tanks, and they'd breed much faster, and then the predators wouldn't take them over, and then they would, sell them.
So did you see any UFOs while you were out there? Because I know Michael Lee thinks, or he's had pictures.
Stores. You could be out in the lake, and you could see these water twisters show up out of nowhere.
Okay.
There was guaranteed to be a UFO within 30 minutes of that process.
Interesting.
Guaranteed.
I was born in Erie.
Yeah. It's a nice area.
Hamlet Hospital.
Born just outside of Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, so you're on the other side.
Yeah, on the other side.
Uh-huh. Because that's a big old lake.
Yeah.
And they have their own environmental systems, too.
The river caught on fire 4 times.
Ah!
Okay, the Cuyahoga River. That's why, Cleveland was the butt of the jokes for many, many years. And the lake went through a massive oily die-off.
Oh, that just made me shiver. Ugh.
And then it brought itself back to life. And I remember having this conversation with my mom and dad at the time, because we used to go fishing all the time at Lake Erie. And then, there was the big die-off, and then things started coming back to life, and everyone started going back out to the lake. And that's about the time when the zebra mussels began taking over the lake.
Right.
Right.
So they cleaned it.
Yeah. I mean, I cannot tell you how fast they went from never seeing a zebra mussel anywhere to literally encrusting everything.
So they live off toxin.
No, they're filtered. They don't live off toxins. They remove it, and then they store it and create shell out of it. That's how it's pulls it out.
Yeah, I get that, but interesting. And once the water got clean, did they go away?
No, they keep growing. There's nothing that can predate on them. There's no freshwater crustacean that can break their shell.
Whoa.
There are no crabs. Essentially, it's crabs that control what grows on the banks.
Right, or it's
They're voracious destroyers.
the cleaners.
Right.
Huh. That's interesting. Because I remember the crabs. They were always ground. I never saw that they were picking stuff apart, but then they were just little blue crabs.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
Narco-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week.
Yes.
But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting.
Yes, I see.
By a civil majority in the case of purely internal affairs.
Be quiet.
But by a 2/3 majority in the case of
Be
more
quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look. It's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Buzz.
Buzz who?
Oh, I don't know, but I'm having a great time trying to think about working with the bees and being a person who just... I hear you have a story about bees. Do you? You have a notion or an idea about the bees and what's been going on and why the collapse has been happening?
Well, I believe bees are a way for this planet to bring its awareness to every aspect of its surface. Bees are sensing things that lead back to a queen who spends most of its time in dream time, connected to its workers through a dreaming process or whatever you want to call the interconnectedness that's there. So I see colonies as bees can be one dreaming entity. You could have one colony of bee could be one being, or 10 colonies could be one being who is there to form some form of ancestral resolution process in which pathways and webbings can be made so that the rabbit, grid and the coyote grid and all of that stuff have synchronistic encounters that support the great food chain of life. Because in that aspect, everything is a spiritual contract from life to death, and the being is quite aware of it. And the bees play an integral part at making sure each of those sentient beings, from dogs, cats, rabbits, birds, etc., all have their own energetic pathway or connection to their frequency of light that returns them to their astral space, that teaches their forms of life review for that process of living.
Yeah, it is all just a ripple in the fabric, isn't it? Or the pond, drop of water.
So that is what I believe bees function. So when the whole colony collapse disorder, that is a massive disruption in the spiritual resolution to all of those other things that are sentient that we don't acknowledge are sentient.
I know, that's the sad part to me. Right. All life is cherishable, even though I might catch a rat or two. But still to the idea that, everything has its plan of purpose.
Right. You may catch a rat or two, and I have to do with the rat or two or get the flies. Sometimes the flies here can get so bad. I mean, I can't do a radio show with it.
The glue traps are great, man. We actually have fly zappers. They look like tennis rackets, and it's got a battery in it, and it's electrified.
I have one too. I have the good old long arm fly swatter too, as you can't beat those sometimes.
I know, right?
Yeah.
The rolled up newspaper or magazine, yeah.
Or the towel. You turn into a whip.
Well, I had a dog. She loved catching flies. That was her game, man.
Yeah. My space.
Well, but it was fun jumping after it, and for some reason, she was a good girl. I miss my baby red dog. 16 years, and I don't take, but we had a great telepathic communication the day she was dying.
Mm-hmm.
And we never had that before because it was always, she was there to watch over me, not to, to be part of my protection, not to talk to me. And that day was just a magic day.
Aww.
And of course I had to have idiots around me that had no clue about how to treat and handle death. And it was just something else.
Mm-hmm.
But yep, many things get processed and it's still a part of the life. And I know if her spirit needed to come back, she'd find me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the last thing about the bees, we consume their honey and we use their royal jelly in medicine. And there is where humans and bees have a very close equivalency relationship, because without the bees, everything falls apart. Everything. Plants don't get pollinated.
Just the vibration of their wings has element to make things into a whole better existence.
Harmonic eminence. Yes. This is why I relate them to dreaming entities, living, breathing, moving lucidity. So you can communicate to bees. They're a little bit different of a connection. It's a matter of making that leap into that. That's why bee collectors have such profound experiences. Bees, colony collapse disorder, whatever you want to call it. It was a representation that something was very wrong in the unseen world of everything that the bees, function
This
with.
has been for decades. Ever since the killer bees were manifested.
Centuries. Let's put it as centuries.
Okay.
Because the unseen world of everything is combined there, from the dogs and the
that's
cats.
interesting, right? Ooh. With its own group of sentient beings. That's rather interesting, isn't it?
Right. And then you have cities that are put on top of that, and the bees still grow in the cities. They're the ones that bind all of these organizations together.
Well, because they don't visualize the 3D as we do.
No. They are creating their own grid through the 3D, and the 3D creates a grid that it may follow or it may not follow. Can you really predict where the bees' nests are going to be? No. Bees put a nest in based off of the energy.
Well, I was thinking because, see, now they put them in boxes. I don't like being in a box. They used to put them in a basket. Remember how they showed like a dome thing, and that's where the bees were?
So bees, in my point of view, when they're free and they're forming their next nest, the queen and whatever is associating and flying with it to make the first set of, a web nest or an underground, whatever it's going to be, those are looking for a specific energy that's supporting the queen's ability to sleep, to not be disturbed. Okay? So that the rest of the workers can go through their wake and sleep process on a cyclical basis. And then the energy that the queen is converting there is, in my point of view, once again, ancestral. When you put queens in a box, their ancestral purpose is to make honey that is going to go to people who put in their tea, put on their skin, make into products, so on and so forth. And that is their ancestral contract to be resolving that way. And that has been done for millions of years, that there's been bees. People have been figuring out how to get the honey on a regular basis. Boxes are not a new invention.
Oh, I still rather have my bees in a round one, but that's okay. That's just my preference. Because I know how the Fibonacci system works, so I can allow a square every now and then. But tell you what, I have an architecture degree, but when I saw Monterey domes or geodesic domes, I was sold.
So they could
get out of the corners. Oh, pardon me.
They can train bees how to make any shape nest. Literally, any shape nest. It's all about using their pheromone. So they can take a very thin plastic exoskeleton, and the bees will build around it in the shape that they want.
Oh, well, isn't that decorative? Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
So very programmable species.
Whoa.
So, and you have different types of bees, let's say like hornets, who will make massive nests or collective colonies that could release 30 to 40 queens at once.
Wasps, yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, they're huge.
I remember playing as a kid. I must have been, 10 or 12 years old. And we were playing soccer in my friend Brian's backyard. And we all stopped because we saw this giant, and I mean giant bee that looked like a yellow jacket fly by and like literally just go into a tree. And we all stopped and go, we all see this bee. And when we went up to the tree, we were kids, but you put your hand next to it, it was actually like 8 inches long. It was gigantic.
Oh, I don't know. There's been some that, oh gosh.
That was an ancient queen that had grown to its peak and it was releasing itself.
Oh gosh. Mm-hmm.
Now, those come from underground. So bees, once again, can do an amazing amount of things. Are we going to do anything with it? We've had the technology for a long time. Once again, governmental organizations aren't going to allow that to happen.
Because it's for peace and unconditional love and harmony and growth. That's why.
Right.
But we can do what we can on our own. I proved that dirty, dead soil can become life again. I'm so tickled pink. I can't wait for the morning glories to bloom. And the berry bushes, they're sprouting up everywhere.
Right.
I'm so excited about just wild berry bushes. Well, they might be a certain kind, like raspberry, but they're doing it on their own. I don't have to do a thing. Nature can help provide what we need around us if we just would honor and cherish and kind of love and massage, your area.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Nurture your area. Be surprised what comes back to you. One of the funnest things I did was I got to make ponds, and I got really, really good at it. So I could go and get a 30 by 30 or 20 by 20 liner and dig a hole and make the hole seam deeper by taking the dirt out of the hole and making the walls stacked up higher in terraces, and then make a waterfall in it so it could be like 12 or 1,500 gallons per pond. And I grew water lilies, I grew lotuses, I had fish, and the fish would propagate so fast that the herons would come and stay in the water and fish out the fish.
They usually do that with the koi, but yeah.
Yeah, the koi, or I got minnows one year. I just wanted to put them in there just for the hell of it, just to have more variety of fish in there.
Right.
Yeah. And then turtles would naturally come. So usually once a year, I'd empty out all the water and clean out the muck at the bottom, and then try to save whatever is in there. I'd usually find 1 or 2 turtles, fish that I didn't know where the hell they came from. And I had one pond, because I made like 7 and then 2 smaller ones. I didn't clean it at the end of the winter. I just pulled out the pumps and all that stuff. And when I went to go start it in the spring, I decided not to clean it. I just wanted to leave it and let it make its own pH. And as soon as I put the pumps back in, within just before summer starting, fish started appearing in there. And I never put any fish in there.
Well, that's how much of our whole habitat of environment is from the birds.
That's right.
The birds eat the berries, they poop wherever they go, and I mean, who knows about the fish? That's rather interesting.
The birds, their feathers will collect the eggs, and they'll go from pond to pond to pond, and after a while, eggs will seed into smaller ponds.
Oh, don't you love life? Oh, that is so cool.
Or they'll come with the turtles.
Right. Aw. Come on, people, get some nature on, won't you? That should have been your Independence Day rule.
Right. And as soon as the frogs come, that's what attracts the turtles.
I love frogs. I miss frogs so much. Florida is just gone with them. When I left there, I never saw a real frog. There used to be. But I'm up here. I've only heard one.
Mm-hmm.
since I've been here for 5 years.
So I did a lot of research on fish and propagating fish, and I went to a whole bunch of fish farms.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out just south of where I was in Ohio, in a place that still gets snow on a regular basis, there were freshwater shrimp farms, and they were doing a thing called a tiger prawn, a Taiwan tiger prawn. It's a freshwater prawn. It's a big prawn. And this place, made corn and I think some other stuff. And they had these big lakes that were connected with their own little canals or ways to drain the water out to flood the fields or to water the fields.
Mm-hmm.
Converted this 600-acre place to half corn, and then they made tiger prawns in the water down there. And as long as they kept the water circulating and the air moving, they could get 2 to 2.5 tons per lake of prawn at $7 a pound. Right. So I went and visited this place during their harvest season, and it was like, it was quite a job to get it all out, 25 plus people, and then you got to, collect and clean all the prawn and put them on ice and so on. And, then they just, people just start showing up with trucks.
That's the way the America used to work. That's how most people around the world would work it.
So
I mean, because you could even do rice. Think of that.
So it's even cooler. I'll get to rice in a second. So I discovered there were 80 of these farms spread throughout southern Ohio, and well over 1,000 of these freshwater tiger prawn spread all over the United States, even places in the middle of nowhere Arizona desert.
Oh, I love that idea. I want to turn a desert into an oasis.
People are doing it.
Nice.
So the rice fields in the South, when they flood them, there is a massive crayfish or crawfish or boom that goes on. And when the fields are flooded, they put in all the crawfish traps, and they'll come back with 200-300 pounds at a time. So they'll go through these in little john boats up and down the flooded fields, and it could be 400 or 500 traps, all trying to get 5-10 crayfish at a time, until finally they get them in huge volumes. The crayfish, they go deep under the ground, at like not several feet, but 4 or 5 feet under the ground. And then they don't come up until it's flooded.
That is so cool.
So that is its own industry. Now that industry can be modified. That same industry can be a massive, let's just say, not bait fish, but feeder fish for people. That's where whitefish, a variety of whitefish, can very much thrive in that environment. So not only at the same time could you be having, let's say, you're going for crawfish, but you could have 2 or 3 other types of fish in the same catching system.
Well, that's like thinking about this 3 sisters and growing your plants.
And once again, agricultural will not allow farmers to do that. Now, there are farmers that do it illegally, and then because people have been doing it for centuries. There's just the technology now that if you have the right acreage that is able to contain the water, and you're able to cyclically bait and trap and so on and so forth, it's an endless commodity. Every year you need to flood those fields.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that just be nice if we just had it work as a working system?
Right. So the frog leg industry, I went and visited this place in Mississippi that it breeds like 80 to 90 tons of frogs each year for sale.
That's where they all went.
And when you walk out into these frog patties, it's like 1.5 million frogs singing at once, and it was such a unique experience. And then turtle farms the same way. They'll build tens of thousands of turtles in these little ponds at a time.
I just don't think that's fair.
Me
just
neither.
Imagine the consciousness of the whole group session. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh.
But ultimately, there's the proof. The proof you can reseed the environments. The technology is there. It's the management and the long-term impact.
Yep, and how the environment's regulated, but not really.
Right.
Well, regulations get in the way, but at least managed. Better land management, right. Being a steward, not a caretaker.
So in freshwater, I think it's a third to a half of the fish are called filter feeders. That means they don't actually eat other animals. Their gills filter out microorganisms that are plankton at various micro sizes and smaller sizes. And those are what control the salinity of the water, the bacteriological count, so on and so forth. That's what supports the whole predator process. Even those plankton microorganisms can be reseeded throughout rivers with the existing river water that's there and the existing technology, where you could put large volumes of it and it'll continuously be going down river, recycling the places where that they're not getting the nutrients, making the fish go into more and more areas.
Well, and it's like you said, what plants would encourage that kind of system to reboot itself?
Most of these rivers have been stripped of their natural floating plants, like floating lilies. They literally don't have a space. They grow floating the whole time.
Yeah, well, on my creek, I have some gorgeous stuff that just shows up, and it does its color every year in the whole 9 yards. So that's cool. But the erosion and other things that have happened over the years.
Yeah.
But normally
there's this other stuff that grows on the top of the lake. It's I forgot what it was called, but it grows like this blanket of stuff on the top, and it acts as a massive filter, and then when it dies off, it kind of harms the place. But they can use that form of stuff to clean lakes very fast. They just have to take off that top layer over and over and drag it over and over again. Now, in the ancient days, when they were dragging bottoms and stuff like that, and they wanted to save lakes, as soon as there was a top layer of green scum, they called it, they began dragging the surface. And they were able to save their lakes over and over again, because it's all about letting the oxygen out from the bottom.
Interesting. Well, some places it's methane. And it has killed whole villages when it burped,
Yeah, this is different, though. This is when the algae is blooming too fast and dying off and creating a version of red tide.
Right. Mm-hmm.
On a smaller scale, which kills off the stuff inside, which changes the pH very high. And then when the sun hits it more and more, and it's an endless cycle until you are able to dredge the bottom enough to pull out the dead stuff.
It feeds off the phosphate.
Which then is perfect fertilizer.
I don't know. If it was growing from something that creates a toxin, why would you want to use it as a fertilizer?
It doesn't create a toxin. It's the die-off that creates the toxins, and everything's dying off. That's what a red tide is. That's when you have a massive bloom of algae, and then the sun hits it and kills it because it's heats up too much.
Uh-huh.
And then you have this bloom over the bottom. The algae's coming off the bottom over and over again. Then the sun keeps hitting it and killing it and killing it and killing it.
Because it's really interesting, because the Gulf of Mexico used to have a tide, so you'd think it wouldn't happen, but it has happened all around the coast there. Yeah, I lived with it, so I know what the red tide and the algae stuff is, but that's interesting.
That same thing happens in freshwater lakes, just at a much smaller scale.
Right. Well, it's getting either too much of an element or not enough, and that's the way nature works, I guess. I mean, I haven't seen anything different from it, but I also know that we add to it for it to occur. When
I did the ponds that I have, algae control was absolutely vital. And there was an algicide that I used, which was like 3 drops into a 1,600-gallon pond, and you wouldn't have to worry about mass algae growth during heavy sun times. Because I had everything in there, lotus, water lilies, 20 different kinds of plants, cattails, my own natural filter. And as the sun would hit it, the algae is going to start growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And it's in a captured area. And if you aren't pulling it out, and I had it happen, actually had an algae die-off that killed everything in there a couple different times. That's why I decided I needed to use the algicide.
Right. Well, there's no predator to it, huh? Nothing that'll eat it.
No, not the algae. Not unless you got algae-eating fish. I did have carp in there but they grew too big. Just too big. They grew big really fast. I did do tilapia. They weren't able to survive the winters all the time unless I put them all into the big pond.
Neat.
Yeah, but they grew too fast too, so I had to thin the herd out frequently. Because one fish could have 20 babies that will survive unless the heron come in and eat them.
Right.
And then they'll start eating the bottoms of all the water lilies, and stripping the water of all the food.
The herons will?
No, the tilapia, and then the
other.
Oh,
okay.
So they'll be battling for food.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be kind of fun. Make your own pond.
It's not hard. You can do it for under $300. You can make a pretty big one. It's all about the form. You buy these rubber mats that are 20 by 20, 30 by 30, and you just get, dirt and a little hole. And when you go to line the mat up, it's take as many of the wrinkles out as you can and then fill it up with water and put stuff around it.
Well, this was great, dear sir. Andrew.
Thank you so much. I had a blast.
Well, when you're ready, you know who to call.
All righty. Thank you so much.
Really, honey. I appreciate it. Later.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too, darling.
Listening to Revolution Radio.
Looking for a nightcap to fill your listening needs? Come join us on Spaced Out Radio with me, Dave Scott, right here on Revolution Radio. Monday through Friday for 3 hours a night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we will take you down the supernatural path. From E.T. contact to the paranormal and all of the spiritual, cryptid, and conspiracy stories in between. You can find us right here on Revolution Radio, at spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter at spacedoutradio, and on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show. Spaced Out Radio. It's a night of talk and interaction. Are you experienced?